Good afternoon. Welcome to the joint hearing of the Housing and Government Operations Committees. We are now convening our 1 o'clock agenda for the joint committees. And I'd like to welcome our committee members, Vice Chair Kanuha, Senator Rhodes, and Senator Favela, Senator De La Cruz for the Committee on GVO.
I can't see who's on.
Okay, I think we have Vice Chair De La Cruz here for the Government Operations Committee, Senator Gabbard. And what we're going to be doing now is we're going to be recessing the joint hearing, and we're going to be convening our next two agendas, the 101 agendas. First, the decision-making from this past Tuesday, followed by the hearing for one bill also from this past Tuesday. So from this past Tuesday, we're now going to be convening the Committee on Housing. And we have two items on this agenda: Senate Bill 2870 relating to public housing.
Sorry, Senator, you need to gavel out and gavel back in.
Okay.
So gavel out of GVO and then gavel into housing.
Okay, so we're now recessing the
late testimony finally from DOT on Favela's bill, that 50%.
Okay, so we'll now be recessing the joint HOU-GVO hearing. And we are now coming back in for the 101 Committee on Housing decision-making. Okay, so let's begin with housekeeping. This meeting, including the audio and video of remote participants, is being streamed live on YouTube. You will find links to viewing options for all Senate meetings on the live and on-demand video page of the legislature's website. This Zoom meeting and YouTube live stream event will include the following agendas. Like I said, the joint HOU-GVO meeting at 1 o'clock. Also the 1:01 p.m. HOU decision-making, and then the 1:01 p.m. HOU deferred agenda from Tuesday. In the unlikely event that we have to abruptly end this hearing due to major technical difficulties, the committee will reconvene to discuss any outstanding business after the after the GVO 3 p.m. meeting today in room 225 and online. And a public notice will be posted on the legislature's website. For those participating remotely, all testifier audio will be muted and video disabled until shortly before it is your turn to testify. Okay, so like I said, we're beginning with decision-making on two bills deferred from Tuesday, starting with Senate Bill 2870 relating to public housing, which requires the HPHA to consider the severity of the reason to terminate and evict and make a determination that no other alternative remedy is available prior to terminating any lease, rental agreement, permit, or license, and evicting from any premises any tenant, licensee, or occupant. So the chair's recommendation on this measure will be to pass with amendments. We'll take the amendments from HPHA to apply the bill only to marijuana evictions, specifically adding the clause, provided that prior to evicting a tenant due to marijuana use, the authority shall issue 1, a written warning to the tenant, 2, engage the tenant in an informal meeting to discuss the matter with the property manager, and 3, provide a formal grievance hearing prior to referral to the eviction board. Tenant shall provide medical documentation confirming that alternative options to smoking, such as medical marijuana pills, liquids, oils, or powder, are not recommended. Further, we'll also take the HPH amendment that this applies only to state but not federal public housing. And we'll also take the amendment proposed by the Akamai Cannabis Clinic to insert the language at page 2, line 19, and provided further that to reduce the risk of unwarranted evictions, the authority shall file for a federal exemption under 21 CFR 1307.03 and 21 CFR 1308.43 for the state authorized use of any controlled substance that may create a conflict with federal law or regulation. Okay, so Housing Committee members, do we have any questions or discussion on the recommendation for SB 2870? Okay, again, for the recommendation for SB 2870 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
Chair's recommendation for SB 2870 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Moriwaki?
Aye.
Senator Rhodes?
Aye.
Senator Favela?
Aye.
Chair, 5 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you so much. Our second bill on this agenda is Senate Bill 2251 relating to the Hawaii Public Housing Authority. It allows the Hawaii Public Housing Authority to build non-subsidized housing. And the chair's recommendation for this measure will be to pass it with amendments. We'll be taking several amendments from HPHA. First, we'll take their proposed SD1 to incorporate all income levels as was attached as page 3 to their testimony. These amendments will apply to existing HPHA properties with housing. In addition, we'll also create a new power to build non-public housing, but that will be restricted only to non-ceded lands. And this power will apply to lands that do not have any housing on them. And to clarify, the definition of public housing project in 356D-1 will not be deleted. Okay, so again, the recommendation for Senate Bill 2251 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
For Senate Bill 2251, Chair's recommendation is to pass with amendments. With 5 members I see present, are there any reservations? Any opposition?
No vote for me.
Okay, Senator, no vote for Senator Favela. Chair, you have 4 ayes. Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you very much, Vice Chair. That brings us to the end of the decision-making. The decision-making is now adjourned. Okay. And now we're coming back in for the deferred hearing of Senate Bill 2588 for the Committee on Housing. This bill is relating to housing. It appropriates funds to the HPHA for the rehabilitation of housing units. And we have 3 testifiers. The first is Hakeemu and Safi for the Hawaii Public Housing Authority in support.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, members of the committee. We stand on our testimony in support. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And then we next have the Department of Budget and Finance with comments and the Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify orally on this matter? Okay, seeing none, we'll go into a brief recess and then come back for decision making. Okay, we're back from our recess. The Committee on Housing will now do decision-making for Senate Bill 2588 relating to housing. The chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure unamended. Okay, any questions or discussion, members? Okay, if not, the chair's recommendation for SB 2588 is to pass unamended. And the chair votes aye. Vice Chair Kanuha?
Chair's recommendation for SB 2588 is to pass unamended. Of the 5 members I see present, are there any opposition? Any reservations? Chair, you have 5 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Thank you so much. And that concludes the deferred hearing, the 101 agenda for the Committee on Housing. Of the Joint Committees on Housing and Government Operations. Thank you to the Committee on Government Operations for your indulgence. At this time, I'd like to welcome Vice Chair Kanuha, Senator Favela, Senator Moriwaki, and Senator Rhodes from the Committee on Housing, and Chair Moriwaki for the Committee on GVO.
Aloha from the Government Operations Committee. I see Senator, I thought I saw, Senator Gabbard and Senator Favela and I guess that's it. I thought I saw Senator Dela Cruz, but And Senator Chen. No, wait, yeah,
Yeah, I think I see him. I think he was on earlier.
okay, and Senator Chang. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so members, we have an ambitious agenda today, so we're going to try to ask everybody to keep things tight and concise. We'll begin with our first bill, Senate Bill 3261, relating to housing. This establishes the Aloha Homes program to develop low-cost homes on state-owned and county-owned land in urban redevelopment sites to be sold and leasehold by the HHFDC to qualified residents. It exempts certain land from the definition of public lands. It requires HHFDC to gain legislative approval before disposing of certain land. It provides for the disposition of lands acquired by HHFDC but no longer needed for the Aloha Homes program, and it appropriates funds. Okay, our first testifier for Senate Bill 3261 is the Department of the Attorney General with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang and Chair Moriwaki and members of the committees. Sandra Ching, Deputy Attorney General. My department is providing 3 comments. 2 are more technical housekeeping comments. On page 8, lines 14 and 15, small and medium vendor is defined, yet it's not mentioned elsewhere in the bill, so we suggest deleting that definition. Also, on page 31, lines 1 to 3, there's a reference to subpart B, but we think we suggest that it be amended to state subpart C, because that will be the new subpart that creates Aloha Homes. And the final comment is with respect to Article 7, Section 5 of the Constitution, that requires that prohibits exemptions and provides that no public money shall be expended except pursuant to appropriations made by law. Those are my comments, and I'm available for questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next testifier is Department of Budget and Finance with comments and HHFDC with opposition. And then next, with oral comments, Church of the Crossroads in support.
Aloha. My name is John Kawamoto, and I'm testifying on behalf of the Church of the Crossroads. Housing prices in Hawaii have steadily risen for decades, spurred by outside investment that raises overall housing prices. Meanwhile, wages have stagnated because Hawaii's economy is overly dependent on the low-wage tourist industry, depressing wages in all sectors of the economy. The relentlessly growing gap between housing prices and wages have made housing less and less affordable for more and more of Hawaii's families. Today, an estimated 50,000 housing units are needed by working and lower income families. Clearly, we have to do much more than we have been doing. Hawaii needs big, new ideas, and SB 3261, the Aloha Homes Bill, is one of them. It is the only bill that seeks to produce enough housing to meet Hawaii's total housing need. Furthermore, unlike other government housing development programs, the bill endeavors to be revenue neutral to the state and counties. SB 3261 is optimistic that enough housing can indeed be built to ensure that all of Hawaii's families have access to housing that is affordable to them. But more than optimism, SB 3261 also creates the structure, rules, requirements, authorizations, funding mechanisms, and many other details needed to make it happen. For the foregoing reasons, the Church of the Crossroads supports SB 3261. Mahalo for your kind attention.
Thank you very much. Other testifiers include Institute for Human Services and Support, Grassroot Institute of Hawaii with comments, BIA Hawaii in support, Shots Collaborative LLC opposition, Hawaii Appleseed with comments, the Michaels Organization with opposition, and 2 individuals, Gerald Gordner and Ellen Godby Carson, in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on this measure?
Chair. Have HHFBC said that they were waiting to get in to testify.
Okay, is HHFTC present and wishing to testify?
Yes, I see them there, Senator. They're ready to go.
HHFTC?
Aloha. Thank you. Thank you, chairs, vice chairs, members of the joint committee. I'm glad that we could get in. We want to begin by saying that we share in the legislature's concern about the lack of affordable housing. The Aloha Homes proposal was first made in 2019 under Senate Bill 1. Though this bill did not pass, the legislature did pass a bill to conduct a feasibility study on its key elements. Act 167 commissioned the study, which was conducted by Hawai'i Appleseed, and the conclusion was that this program could not feasibly be replicated in Hawaii, mainly due to the significant differences in government structure, the relatively high cost of construction in relation to affordable prices the homes are to be sold at under a revenue neutral model, and the diminishing returns cited in the study on large scale development as density increases. Given the results of the study, HHFTC is unable to support this bill in its current form. However, there are elements of the model that could be beneficial in moving affordable housing forward. One element is the exemption from the definition of public lands. Chapter 171 already exempts lands that we hold title to, so broadening the exemption to include non-ceded lands set aside to HHFTC enables us to treat all lands under our control in a consistent manner while concurrently respecting the concerns of the Native Hawaiian community. This would help streamline development. The only thing we ask for to facilitate accurate mapping of the lands is a list of the TMK numbers of ceded lands from OHA to ensure we're in alignment. Our written testimony articulates areas of concerns, many of which are outlined in the study. The first is the cost versus the pricing versus revenue neutrality. It's unclear as to how revenue neutrality will be achieved given the gap between the cost to build and the price the units are to be sold at to be considered affordable.
Director, we did receive your written testimony. Would you like to summarize?
Sure, I'll attempt to do that. The costs to develop are not low. The cost is the cost. So the estimated cost to build a high-rise in Honolulu is around $500,000 a unit. But the cost is likely to be a lot higher than that. And you're all very familiar why, because of the issues created by the pandemic on supply chain and material and labor costs. The study also cites that one approach to cost savings is density. However, the study also pointed out that the savings from higher densities diminish as density increases. It's also important for the public to visualize what high density could look like. For instance, if the goal was to build 15,000 units on a 15-acre parcel, that would call for 30 high-rises, each 40 stories tall. One of the main impediments to affordable housing is the lack of infrastructure. And Oahu along the TOD, it's mainly sewer capacity. Inadequate sewer capacity to accommodate higher densities is a big concern, especially for the Halava Aloha Stadium area, where sewer upgrades are not envisioned until over a decade from now. The lack of detail on how infrastructure will be paid for is concerning, especially given the cost for regional infrastructure priced out at $5 billion.
Director, we have a limited amount of time today. Could you just summarize with one more sentence? We did receive your written testimony.
Sure. The only other point I want to make is the concept of residential leasehold holds some potential. However, there is the depth of the market appetite for residential leasehold is relatively untested. And while it's not new to Hawaii, buyers may prefer to purchase fee simple products instead. So unless there is some validation to this residential leasehold concept, the state would be taking a large risk in developing high-rise structures, which by their very nature have very high capital costs. The last thing I want to leave the committee with is under the program, affordable priced homes are accessible to everyone regardless of income. And the analysis and the feasibility study indicated that this is not the best practice, as constrained housing supply requires some prioritization. So a good public policy would be one that ensures those individuals and families that can least afford to pay market prices receive some kind of priority. That sums up my testimony. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. We did receive your written testimony, members, and it should have been distributed. And the committee anticipates amending the bill in various ways to address the comments that you just reiterated from your written testimony, Director. I just had two specific follow-ups. The one you just mentioned was that the market for residential leasehold units is untested. You also mentioned in your written testimony your concern about some of the procurement requirements. Did you have any specific suggestions for the committee on how you would like those 2 points to be addressed?
With regards to the marketability of leasehold residential units, I think a more in-depth study, market study would be necessary for that. And then for procurement, we are currently exempt from procurement. And when we partner with developers, so I would say we continue that model. That's the whole point of not slowing down development.
Thank you very much, Director.
You're welcome.
Members, any further questions or comments on Senate Bill 3261? Senator Moriwaki.
Back to HHFDC. So you say that there are these concerns in terms of cost versus price and how we might be able to build these units that we need, and focusing on the lower end spectrum of our community. But if we focus only on the lower end, wouldn't it be more costly? And how might we then address a way of paying for all of these units, that 50,000 that we need in the future, or currently and in the future?
So
Any
that's-
suggestions?
Yeah, that's just part of the concern, that the bill lacks the details to fill in those blanks. And the suggestion is more not so much the low income spectrum, but maybe median income and less than median income. And median income for Oahu is about $106,000 right now per household. So there's already the LIHTC program that addresses low-income rentals. Rentals are not considered in the concept, but that's part of the missing information. And so, you know, partnering with the private sector in development is another area of opportunity. The bill, as it's written, kind of suggests that government takes on the construction and the development, and we would want to continue the model of having the private sector develop. There are other programs that may be necessary. The expansion of the GET, there are groups that are pursuing that matter. The expansion of the rental housing program to include gap subsidy for higher income levels. And I believe that's another initiative that may be in progress, but it would be a combination of things, policy-wise, as well as subsidy levels. But I think it would take a work group maybe to expand the discussion on that.
So I think we've seen this bill before, and I'm just thinking of a way that we can go forward. And you're talking about a number of different options that can come together. And Chair, I'm not sure, but you know, one way is to just form a working group that can actually from the counties as well as the different partners in this effort, private as well as public, to see how we can move the Aloha Homes bill forward. So I don't know if Director HHFDC Denise, whether that's a possibility of some kind of working group to at least start looking at some of the components of Aloha Homes to get this moving forward in the interim, maybe.
Sure, Chair, we would be open to that.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I see Senator Gabbard, is that your hand?
Yes, thank you, Chair. I just want to get a sense of where we are. I know that it's stated that in 2016, we passed Act 127 setting the goal of 22,500 affordable rental housing units by 2026. And so it's 2022. Where are we? How many have been built? Would HHFDC have that number, or?
Aloha, good afternoon, Senator Gabbard. I don't have that.
I'm sorry, Denise, I can barely hear you. Can you turn up your volume?
Can you hear me now?
A little bit better. Okay, go ahead.
Okay, aloha, Senator Gabbard. I don't have that number offhand, and I'm not sure who's in charge of tracking that, but we do have a number of total production that HHFDC has been involved with, and we can get that to your office and to the committee. However, that doesn't represent all the rentals in the state, because a lot of the projects are approved by the counties. And I'm not sure who is tracking that, but that was the goal. A good maybe 75% of the projected units that we have envisioned for the 5-year plan is going to be rental units. And I believe our total projection for 5 years is something like 7,500 units. But that's only the ones that we're involved with. That doesn't represent all the ones that DHHL is doing, the ones that HPHA may be doing, and other private developers may be doing.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any further questions or discussion? Okay, if not, we're going to take this agenda slightly out of order. With the permission, Chair Moriwaki, we have Councilmember Elefante who wanted to testify on Senate Bill 2192 relating to housing, which is further down in our agenda. So, okay, if that's all right with you, then we'll move. Our next item is Senate Bill 2192 relating to housing. It extends the time frame given to the county councils to approve with modification, or disapprove an affordable housing project submitted for review pursuant to Section 201H-31A HRS from 45 to 60 days. Our first testifier, Honolulu City Council, in support.
Thank you so much, Chair Chang and Chair Moriwaki, Vice Chairs Kanuha and Vice Chair Dela Cruz. I stand on my written testimony in strong support of Senate Bill 2192, which would give the county extra days from 45 to 60 days to consider 201H projects for affordable housing. Chair Chang, as well as Senator Gabbard and Chair Emeritus Kanuha and Chair Emeritus Dela Cruz, as former county or city council members, you understand the importance of it is to approve 201H projects, as sometimes the counties don't have enough time given our schedule to approve. It's not that we're not in support or in favor of affordable housing. We are in favor of affordable housing and like to see some of these projects go through. It's just really to give the city council some time to give consideration to that. So I hope for your favorable consideration today and that you move this measure along. Thank you so much, co-chairs. Appreciate the time today.
Thank you very much, Council Member. Our other testifiers include Dr. Holeka Goro Inaba for the Hawaii County Council in support. We also have Hawaii County Council Member Heather Kimball in support, EAH Housing in opposition, Stanford Car Development LLC in opposition, BIA Hawaii in opposition, Alice Lee, Chair, I think that's the Maui County Council, in support, and HHFDC in opposition. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2192? Okay, if not, any discussion or questions, members?
I do.
Chair Moriwaki.
Hi, aloha, Council Member Elefante. A question for you. So what now is the time frame that the county uses when you do have a 201H submission to you?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question, Chair Moriwaki. So right now we have 45 days So once we receive a 21H application from HHFDC, we have to schedule hearings within that time frame. If we don't do any action, then it automatically gets approved unless there is a resolution to disapprove of the 201H project.
But have you had problems with the 45-day period to review? Because what is the process? It comes to you already sort of vetted from the administration and then you look at it, or what is your process?
Yes, that's correct. So they work with DPP and the applicants do early outreach. Some are really good about it, some are not. And I know HHFDC does stress that to the applicants to reach out with the county council members or city council members to make sure that they're briefed on the project. But once we get it, the 45-day shot clock window starts to run, and we're not able to do any extension of time, nor are we able to do sort of a thorough review. So giving 60 days gives us some wiggle room to schedule a meeting so that we can consider. And what's happened in the past is we've had to have special meetings. And I know Chair Chang and Chair Kanuha, and I know former Councilmember Gabbard and Chair Dela Cruz know exactly what it is in giving consideration for 201H projects in such a short time window. We're able to do that, but we have some issues with quorum when we do schedule some of these meetings. So 60 days will be beneficial for county council staff and members to review applications.
Well, I guess on the other side, what we're seeing from those in opposition is that it delays projects that, should be moving forward quicker than slower. And whether you have any suggestions, having been through some of these cases that come before you, what might be something that would be more amenable and among the parties?
Yeah, this was one of the solutions that we came up with. I know Kevin Carney and Stanford Carr have testified, submitted written testimony for that. And I've also met with HHFDC director as well and understand their position. So we figured, giving a little wiggle room will help us to review. But we still have to consider it, because if we don't do any action, it would just be deemed approved. And there's not much that the county council can do in terms of drastic changes on exemptions that we're giving to these affordable housing projects as they come through the council. So it's just a matter of kind of reviewing the application, making sure that it meets criteria, zoning and whatnot, and they fulfill requirements. So this would also help DPP in terms of their review. And so a lot of that time sometimes can be bogged down in DPP and their staff with reviewing application before it gets to the county council.
But doesn't DPP do all of the vetting so that before it even comes to the council, all those questions should have been answered?
That's correct.
It should be done sooner than later before the council, yeah.
That's correct. However, as a caveat to that, what I will say, Chair Moriwaki, is that sometimes members have questions that may not have been vetted by DPP as it pertains to their community, or there may be a project that comes that maybe DPP didn't ask that question. So sometimes members may have some concerns as it relates to that. But in most cases, I've only seen a few denials of 201H projects.
Okay, so this is not to exceed 60 days, so you can do it sooner.
That is correct, and that is our intent. We want to do it as quickly as possible to take it up, because we have a lot on our plate, just like you folks do. So we want to work with the developer and applicants, as well as HHFDC and DPP, to ensure timeliness. But that just gives us, we're not going to wait till day 58 to have a hearing.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, we'll move back to our regular, our next agenda item, which is the second bill on the agenda, unless there are any further questions or comments. Okay, the next measure is Senate Bill 2506 relating to the Department of Housing. It creates the Department of Housing and places the Hawaii Community Development Authority, Hawaii Housing Finance and Development Corporation, Office of Planning and Sustainable Development, and Hawaii Public Housing Authority under the Department of Housing for administrative purposes. Our first testifier is Hakeem Safi, Hawaii Public Housing Authority, with comments.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chairs, members of the committees. We send on our testimony offering, appreciating the intent and requesting an amendment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, we have Department of Budget and Finance with comments and Department of Human Services with comments. Then with oral testimony, we have BIA Hawaii in support.
Not present, Chair.
Thank you. Catholic Charities Hawaii with comments. Individuals Gerard Silva, Desiree Quijano in opposition. John Kawamoto in support.
Aloha. My name is John Kawamoto. This time I'm testifying as an individual and not representing the Church of the Crossroads. The various housing functions of state government are disconnected from each other because the responsibility and authority for these different functions are placed in different departments. These functions would be better coordinated if they were transferred to a single new department that is responsible for housing. You just heard an example from HHFDC about a lack of coordination on the creation of rental housing. Another benefit is that the consolidation would facilitate the creation of a unified housing strategy for the state. The bill proposes to create this new department, and for that reason, I support the bill. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. And then finally, Gerald Gordner in support. Members, any questions or discussion on SB 2506? Next agenda item, which is Senate Bill 2468 relating to housing discrimination. It allows counties to prohibit discrimination against renters based on their source of income. And so for SB 2468, our first testifier is Scott Morishige, an individual in support.
Good afternoon, Chair Chang and Chair Moriwaki. It's Scott Morishige. I'm actually testifying in my role as Governor's Coordinator of Homelessness, my apologies, and Chair of the Hawaii Integrated City Council on Homelessness. I'll stand on my written testimony in support. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next, State Council on Developmental Disabilities in support. We also have the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission in support.
Aloha, Chair, Chair Chang and Chair Moriwaki. You have our written testimony. I'm Bill Hoshijo for the Hawaii Civil Rights Commission, and we'll stand on the written testimony.
Thank you. We have testimony in support from Hawaii Health and Harm Reduction Center and Hawaii Children's Action Network Speaks. Finally, opposition from Ken Hiraki. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2468? Okay, seeing none, the next item on our agenda is Senate Bill 2479 relating to broadband infrastructure. This requires each public housing project, dwelling unit, and state low-income housing project that is built, renovated, or reconstructed after January 1, 2023 to include all necessary broadband infrastructure necessary for tenants to have access to broadband service. Our first testifier is Hawaii Public Housing Authority in support.
Chairs, vice chairs, members of the committee, we stand in support. We're here to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have DBED in support and the State Council on Developmental Disabilities in support. And then with oral testimony, Hawaiian Telcom in support.
Aloha, Chairs Janine Suki. I'm the Senior Manager for Government and Regulatory Affairs with Hawaiian Telcom. We stand on our testimony in support of this bill.
Thank you very much. And our final testifier is Common Cause Hawaii in support. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2479? Okay, if not, we'll move forward. Our next bill is Senate Bill 2238 relating to housing savings accounts. Establishes the procedures for a housing savings account system for all employees in the state. Our first testifier is Craig Hirai, Budget and Finance with comments, followed by Hawaii Government Employees Association with comments. And then with oral testimony, Tax Foundation of Hawaii with comments.
Not present, Chair.
Thank you. And then finally, we have two individuals, Gerard Silva in opposition and Ken Farm in support. Anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2238? Okay, seeing none, our next item, we already heard Senate Bill 2192, so we're going to go down to 2812 relating to bonds. Specifies that the allocation of the state bond ceiling to the state shall be used entirely for housing-related projects. It requires counties that elect to receive their allocation to do so by resolution and specify the allocation amount requested, etc. Our first testifier for Senate Bill 2812 is Department of Budget and Finance with comments. Department of Budget and Finance with comments.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Our camera doesn't seem to be working right now. This is Craig Hurive, Director of Finance. Good afternoon, chairs, committee members. We have concerns with this bill, but basically they tend to be technical in nature, and also there's concerns about non-housing related special purpose revenue bonds that are outstanding. Authorizations are outstanding for like approximately 1.5 billion that would be affected by this. I guess what we're suggesting is that we like the current situation because it allows us flexibility, but as a practical matter, over the last 10 years or so, almost all of the private activity bond cap has gone to affordable housing projects or mortgage credit certificates. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, any questions? Okay. Oh, Chair Moriwaki.
Director Harai, when you say most of it has gone to housing, so is it possible then to continue to put it into housing, since it is the #1 problem for the state to address affordable housing and allowing for these bonds to be so used, whether you put it for a certain length of time, as we say it can sunset it, but at least if they're not being used for other purposes, why not put it all into housing, which we need?
Well, I think I'll just say I'm not sure what the county of Hawaii did with their allocations, but which aren't that much, but 80 million of the bond cap went to Hawai'i Electric in the last 10 years. That's about it. The rest of it, as far as I know, went to house, Hula-May multifamily rental projects or mortgage credit certificates.
So the bill itself also has a sunset. So, it's not forever. And if this is a high priority for the state, and I imagine for all the counties as well, do you see a problem with that?
It's just a question of flexibility. As you know, I am presenting the position of Department of Budget and Finance, and I have reason to know where. In my prior job, I have reason to know where the bond cap went.
Okay, so
you're putting me in an awkward position.
What is the reason?
Well, I used to be the executive director of the HHFDC.
Yeah, no, but what was the problem?
I'm saying we got most of it.
So if that's the case, and this is a major problem for the state to address, why can't we use the funds for that purpose?
That's your decision, Chair.
Okay.
But there are some technical issues that, anyway.
So you can tell us the technical issues, but it is a policy decision, yeah?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Chair. Our next testifier, Department of Planning and Permitting, Honolulu, in support. And then HHFDC in support.
Good afternoon, chairs, members of the committee. We're in strong support, of course, of this measure. It's critical to keeping the pipeline of affordable rentals going. I just want to point out one thing that I believe the utility has used bond cap in the past. It has been significant amounts. They may need significant amounts in the future, but there's one thing that housing does that no other use can do. Housing is the only, I think, use that can leverage the federal.
Sorry, Director, I can't hear you at all.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Not very well. Yeah, if you have a volume control, please crank it all the way up.
Yeah, Chair, I can't hear. I can barely hear you as well.
Okay, Director, if you can can you maybe get closer to the microphone or speak louder?
I'm on my maximum volume now. Can you hear me a little bit better? No? Can you hear me better now? Are you folks still having difficulty hearing me?
Yeah, just try to speak as loud as you can, Director.
Okay.
I'm not sure what the problem is.
Okay, I will try to get my IT guy over here, but what I'm trying to say is that housing is the only use that will allow the state to leverage the federal tax credits and the use of Hula May multifamily bonds. If you apply the bonds to any other use, you don't get the leveraging that you do from using other federal sources like the low-income housing tax credit. A good example is if the 4% LIHTC is syndicated for, say, 35 to 40% of a total development cost of a project, then the use of $55 million of bond cap may be associated with the loss of roughly 35 to 40 million in federal 4% LIHTC subsidy for rental housing. So that's what the state would be sacrificing. So I just wanted to point that out, that's right now, housing gets only leftovers. It doesn't have certainty. It has to rely on what is left over at the end of every year before it can determine what can be applied towards housing. And that's not the kind of certainty that our developers of low-income rentals need.
Thank you, Director.
Thank you.
Our next testifier in support with written support, EAH Housing, Mutual Housing Association of Hawaii, and Schatz Collaborative LLC. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2812? Okay, any discussion further or questions, members? Okay, seeing none, the last measure with housing as the lead on today's agenda is Senate Bill 2922 relating to rural districts. It authorizes the counties to adopt ordinances that allow up to 1 dwelling per quarter acre in rural districts. Our first testifier is Office of Planning and Sustainable Development with comments.
Good afternoon, chairs. Ravi Funakoshi from the State Office of Planning and Sustainable Development. We stand on our written testimony offering comments on the measure. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next testifier is Department of Agriculture with comments, followed by Hawaii County Planning Department in support, Hawaii Realtors in support, and Gerald Gordner in support. Is there anyone else wishing to testify on Senate Bill 2922? Okay, if not, any questions or comments or discussion, members? Okay, and for the final bill, GVO is in the lead, so Chair Moriwaki.
Sorry, Chair, we can't hear you. I think you're muted.
We're reviewing, looking at Senate Bill 3176. relating to allowing counties to adopt rules for the construction of fourplex dwelling units on lots where single-family dwelling units are permitted in residential areas. And first up is Grassroot Institute of Hawaii. I think that's just written comments. And we have an individual in support, two individuals in support. And that's it. No other, any questions, members, on this bill? Otherwise, do we go into break room?
Sure, we can go into recess and come back to decision
recess.
making. Okay, we're in recess. Okay, the committees on housing and government operations are now reconvened for decision making on the 1 o'clock agenda today. Our first item is Senate Bill 3261 relating to housing. The recommendation from the chair of the Housing Committee will be to pass with amendments. There are technical non-substantive amendments. Also, we'll be taking the 3 amendments proposed by the Department of the Attorney General. Also, we'll be taking the amendments proposed by Appleseed, which also overlap with HHFDC, but to start with the Appleseed amendments, to adjust the language of the bill to clarify that Aloha Homes has potential to address critical housing needs, but cannot alone end the housing shortage. Number 2, to clarify that separate investments in infrastructure may be necessary to allow for Aloha Homes developments. Number 3, rather than providing HHFDC a right of first refusal and or the benefit of 75% of the proceeds of the sale, we suggest placing limits on the resale price based on a set formula that ensures the preservation of affordable ability for future buyers. And actually, we would, just to clarify, would preserve the HHFDC right of first refusal, but not the 75% of the proceeds of future sales. Number 4, provide for income preferences to prioritize households for whom Aloha Homes creates a previously unavailable opportunity to purchase a home. Number 5, to leave open the possibility of additional subsidies to permit lower income households the opportunity to access the program. Number 6, to work with the counties to align Aloha Homes with existing housing programs to the greatest extent possible, such as by coordination of waiting lists for already existing county affordable housing programs. And actually, number 7, to make clear that HHFDC is permitted to use DERF and other fund, potential affordable home ownership fund for the acquisition of these units pursuant to their right of first refusal. And then with respect to the HHFDC amendments, number 1, in-depth market study for leasehold housing, as was mentioned in today's hearing. Number 2, to expressly insert language contemplating partnership with private developers for design, construction, and development. Number 3, 5 additional FTE positions at an estimated cost of about $700,000 for IT, software, and hardware needs to be around $60,000 for upfront costs and $12,000 annually for the subscription. And then finally, as was mentioned in the hearing earlier, to create a working group for the concept. Okay, members, do we have any questions or discussion? Okay, if not, then the recommendation for Senate Bill 3261 relating to housing is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Kanuha.
For the Committee on Housing on SB 3261, Chair votes aye, Vice Chair votes aye. Senator Moriwaki.
Aye.
Senator Rhodes.
Aye.
Senator Favela.
Aye.
Chair, you have 5 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Same recommendation for the Committee on Government Operations. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair Dela Cruz is here. Okay, excused. Senator Chang.
Aye.
Senator Gabbard.
Aye.
And Senator Favela. You're muted. Senator Favela?
Yes.
Okay,
Aye.
okay. Five
Aye.
vote aye. The recommendation is
No,
adopted.
wait, aye.
Got it. Oh, there. Okay. Vice Chair is here. Sorry, did not see you. Okay, great.
Okay.
Taking the votes for us.
Okay, so great. So we're all set for Senate Bill 3261. Our next item is Senate Bill 2506 relating to the Department of Housing. Having conferred and having read some of the resistance from the agencies of the state, the chair's recommendation will be to defer this measure. Our next item is Senate Bill 2468 relating to housing discrimination. Allows counties to prohibit discrimination against renters based on their source of income. Having conferred, the chair's recommendation will be to pass this measure unamended. So again, for SB 2468, chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
For the Committee on Housing, SB 2468, Chair's recommendation is to pass unamended with 5 members I see present. Are there any in opposition? Any with reservations? Chair, 5 ayes, your recommendation is adopted.
For Government Operations Committee, SB 2468, same recommendation. Chair votes aye. And I see all of our members present. Any opposition? Any in reservations? Recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. The next item is Senate Bill 2479 relating to broadband infrastructure. Chairs having conferred, the recommendation on this measure will be to pass unamended. So for SB 2479, Chair's recommendation pass unamended. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
For SB 2479, for the Committee on Housing, Chair's recommendation is to pass unamended. I see 5 members present. Are there any with reservations? Any in opposition? 5 ayes. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
For Government Operations Committee, same recommendation on SB 2479. Chair votes aye. I see all members present. Anyone voting against? Anyone with reservation? The measure is adopted.
Thank you. Our next item is Senate Bill 2238 relating to housing savings accounts. Having conferred, the chair's recommendation will be to pass this with amendments. The amendments will be taking, so instead of moving forward with the housing savings account system, we'll be taking the Department of Budget and Finance's recommendation instead to convert this bill into a thorough analysis of the program by the Legislative Reference Bureau so that the bill would be a bill to conduct a study. And in addition, we'll note in the committee report the concerns from Testifier Farm about independent contractors and CFR section 5.609 regarding eligibility for public housing. So again, the recommendation for Senate Bill 2238 for the Committee on Housing will be to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair?
For SB 2238, Chair's recommendation for the Committee on Housing is to pass with amendments. I see 5 members present. Are there any reservations? Any opposition? Chair, your 5 ayes, your recommendation is adopted.
For the Government Operations Committee, same recommendation, SB 2238. Chair votes aye. See all members present. Anyone in opposition? Any reservations? The measure is adopted.
Thank you. The next measure is Senate Bill 2192 relating to housing. Having conferred, this bill, which extends the time frame given to the county councils to approve 201H projects, having conferred, the decision is to defer this measure. We believe that it's important to keep these 201H projects moving expeditiously. Okay, next item is Senate Bill 2812 relating to bonds. And so having conferred, the chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments. We'll be taking the Department of Budget and Finance's recommendation that the reporting requirement be revised to include information on carry forward PAB allocations and an amendment to the proposed section 39B-2E as detailed in their testimony, and also taking Honolulu DPP's recommendation to remove the requirement to receive the bond allocation by city council resolution. Okay, so again, the chair's recommendation for SB 2812 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation for SB 2812 for the Committee on Housing is to pass with amendments. 5 members present. Any reservations? Any opposition? 5 ayes. Chair, your recommendation is adopted.
For Government Operations Committee on same bill, SB 2812, passed with amendments. The chair votes aye. All 5 members. Anyone in opposition? Anyone with reservation? The recommendation is adopted.
Thank you. And then the final measure for HOU in the lead is SB 2922 relating to rural districts. And so having conferred, the chair's recommendation will be to pass with amendments. The amendment will be from the Department of Agriculture to insert the contents of SB 2766, which requires OPSD to perform a study to refine rural district policies and make recommendations to facilitate the reclassification of lands from the state agricultural district to the rural district. And that will be in addition to the existing contents of SB 2922. So again, chair's recommendation for SB 2922 is to pass with amendments. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
Chair's recommendation for SB 2922 in the Committee on Housing is to pass with amendments. 5 members present. Any reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Senator Rhodes. Any opposition? Chair, you have 5 ayes. Recommendation is adopted.
Same recommendation for Government Operations Committee, SB 2922. Chair votes aye. 5 members present. Anyone in opposition? Anyone with reservation? The recommendation is adopted. Okay. So this is Government Operations with Housing, SB 3176 relating to zoning. This allows the counties to adopt rules for the construction of fourplex and residential properties. The chair's recommendation is pass unamended. Chair votes aye. 5 members present. Anyone in opposition? Anyone with reservations? The recommendation is adopted.
Sorry, I don't know if you guys got my first vote. Oh, no, not you. Senator Chang, on my computer would freeze up down here, but it was an aye for me.
On which? Oh, okay. Okay. Mahalo. So gaveling out of Government Operations / Housing.
Oh, the Housing Committee still needs to take the vote. So for the Committee on Housing,
sorry.
Same recommendation, which is to pass unamended for SB 3176. Chair votes aye. Vice Chair.
Committee on Housing, SB 3176. Chair's recommendation is pass on unamended. 5 members present and moving. Any reservations?
Reservations.
Reservations for Senator Rhodes. Any other reservations? Any opposition? Chair 5 ayes. Your recommendation is adopted.
Okay, thank you. So I think that brings us to the end of today's agenda. Thank you very much, Chair Moriwaki. Thank you very much, Housing Committee members and GVO Committee members. This hearing is now adjourned.
Thank you.